Hi there once again. Thanks for spending part of your day with us here on Leading Edge. I'm your host, Jeff Smith. Coming up in a few moments, what do you think of when I say the words youth sports? Do you immediately go positive or negative? Okay, now what if I say the word coaching? Same thing? Take it or leave it? There's a coaching summit in March. It's going to be happening here locally, looking to maybe rewrite the narrative a little bit and provide some insight for both sides of the issue. All the details on that coming up in just a bit. But first, Fletcher Word's been a friend for a long time, and his Sojourner's Truth newspaper has always been a great local publication. If you've never seen it before, you got to check it out. In the last week, the Reverend Donald Perryman, he penned a piece entitled "Listening Through the Cracks: Potential Moves in Toledo Politics." It grabbed my attention because of his prediction of the future. So our resident Nostradamus, the Reverend Donald Perryman, joins us here on Leading Edge today. Thank you for taking some time to be here.
Thank you for inviting me, and glad to be here.
Absolutely. So the reason I wanted to bring you on here, as I said, I'm reading through this article, and you touched on, and you said you write one of these every week for Fletcher's publication, but there's a musical chairs kind of phenomenon happening right now in city and county government. And I was reading through here and I'm like, okay, interesting point. You brought up Katie Moline. I thought, And then what you predicted in this article happened this week. Katie Moline goes from Toledo City Council to the Lucas County Auditor's position. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, Reverend, that it was far, far, far out in left field. But I still was intrigued by the fact that you're somebody who has been around a while, and you've obviously got your finger on the pulse of something. How'd you do it?
I just keep my ear to the ground. I know my people. I listen to things that are said, some things that are not said, and I question them.
Yeah. Like when you say not said, that because they should be said, or just, what do you mean by that?
I mean things that are not being said when circumstances call for something to be said.
I had Sir Sandra McPherson and Venice Williams, two current city council people, sitting in the exact spot you're in here today. I had them on last week to talk about the Ashland Manor situation, the Covington House situation. HUD showed up this week and took a look at what is happening for these residences. And as a longtime Toledoan, as somebody who talks to a congregation each and every week, and you think of the people of Toledo and possibly a contingent living the way they're living, how did this story impact you?
Well, I think, first of all, that we need, particularly low-income people, need somebody to be a voice for them. They may not know how to organize themselves, and they need people in government who are not afraid to speak out. And so that's kind of what I do at my pulpit, speak out on behalf of people who may be marginalized in one way or another.
Proactive or reactive?
Both.
Yeah?
Both.
The strength is in obviously being proactive and getting out there ahead of it.
Well, if you can. Sometimes what you're saying falls on deaf ears.
Yeah. So when you wrote about Katie Moline and a CPA by trade and coming off of council, and now there being 2 vacancies on council because of the shifts we've got to the city's DEI department as well, what's your read on what's happening with council? Where is council right now, in your estimation?
Well, I think council is transitioning. We were older. Demographics are shifting rapidly. And I think pretty soon we're going to have some conflict between generations, and our council needs to get younger.
Dive into that a little bit. Have you written about this?
Recently I did write about it, yes.
What do you mean conflict among generations?
Well, our generation is getting younger. Color is changing. Right now the average white racial group is 57 years old. There are more 27-year-olds than anybody else. So another generation is going to be competing for resources and political representation.
Mm-hmm. And I had a conversation earlier today with a state representative who was on Toledo City Council, Michelle Grimm, and she said she doesn't see the drive for young people to seek out public service as much as maybe it needs to be. Do you subscribe to that?
I don't really know the context in which Representative Grimm was talking about. There's differences in generations. The older generation was, the baby boomers were here because of a post-World War II boom. Now the baby boomers are moving on. You've got Gen X, then millennials, and Gen Z, so they all think differently.
You talked about, obviously, the 2 vacancies on council. We also talked about a little bit Anita Lopez moving from the auditor's office, you talked about in this article, and creating kind of a battle that is forming right now for the auditor or the Lucas County Commissioner position and what will unfold in November. What was your read on that? What is your ear to the ground on this thing?
There's going to be a primary in March. Anita Lopez was appointed, but Paula Hicks Hudson also wants that position. So they're going to pretty much duke it out. Now, right now, I think that Lopez has a slight edge. Paula Hicks Hudson was a former mayor, so she has some name recognition out there. But my people tell me that Anita Lopez is out there in the community hustling hard, keeping her ear to the ground, her hand to the plow, working very, very hard, and got an early start. And she, between the two, she is the only one that has achieved countywide support and won a countywide election.
And as you bring up Paula Hicks Hudson, obviously council, mayor, state rep, senator, I mean, the list goes on and on. Does it give you pause coming back locally to bring back that interest in being back here in Toledo?
I think with the political makeup of the state legislature, I think she could be more effective here in Lucas County, which is a blueberry and a strawberry patch, rather than being in Columbus, where they are greatly outnumbered.
You brought up a couple of names, possible fill-ins for the Toledo City Council vacancy. One of them, Mac Driscoll, who I had somebody else tell me they're pulling for them. There was another name, Michael Hart, who you said obviously on the homelessness board. 2 names. Why did those come to the forefront for you?
Well, Michael Hart, his wife is working for the city of Toledo, so there might be a conflict there. So Mike has jumped out before and then changed his mind. I'm thinking right now you need to keep your eye on Randall Parker, who is right now the president of the Toledo School Board, but a very smart guy, very likable. Also a pastor in the African American church. He brings a lot to the table. Keep your eye out for him.
In our final moments, and we talked a little bit before we came out here today, you from the pulpit and obviously seeing the congregations that you speak to and kind of the feeling that you get, and is there a changing dynamic as far as the congregation, what you've seen over the years? Are the young people coming? Do they seek out the Word of God or even some direction? Just, is there that family connection? Are you seeing it where you are?
Well, the younger people don't attend church like their parents and grandparents. But I tell people this, the black church is a spirit, it's a culture. It goes beyond the building. It's more of an organism rather than an organization. So we get to young people through their parents, you know, so we're known even though people don't come to church every Sunday. Yeah. And then we're on Zoom. So sometimes they're listening in, popping in when they want to, and when they want to disengage, they leave. But they're still close by.
How do you get them back and tell them they need the church?
I don't. They will come when they need the church. Yeah. When issues come, the church is one of the first places they turn to.
Finally, as we get ready to say goodbye in this segment, you said sometimes you steal from your Sojourner Truth opinion pieces and share a little bit with your sermon, or vice versa?
vice versa. The Word of God comes first.
Absolutely. Reverend, it's good to see you. Thank you for being on Leading Edge.
Thank you for having me.
Don't be a stranger.
I won't.
All right. We'll be right back right after this. Welcome back. We appreciate you spending some time with us. As always, I'm going to put this out there. Sports are tough. I'm just going to leave it there. Athletes these days, these kids have all kinds of distractions. Coaching these kids, no matter the level, it can be even tougher. Well, there's an event coming up next month bringing in resources from all over. The goal is to elevate coaching standards, to enhance athlete well-being, and to positively impact the communities in which they serve. Joining me from the upcoming Northwest Ohio Coaching Summit, Jonathan Haynes, Bella Johnson. Thank you so much for being here. This is big for me because, as you guys said, this is inaugural. This is something, Jonathan, you were telling me, this is done elsewhere, and you guys felt a need to bring it here.
Right. So Bella and I are part of programs, and you know, from our graduate programs, there's regions around the country that host conferences very similar to this, and we kind of had the discussion that we felt like we're kind of missing out.
Why sports? Just put that out there first and foremost.
I mean, for me personally, I was a soccer player and I coached when I was a teacher in Sylvania schools, and so sports really kind of was the thing that kind of drew me to connecting with kids. You know, when I was playing, it was really fun. So it's something like I just wanted to know more how to help people just play better, be better. So things like that. Yeah.
Bella.
So I actually went to school for athletic training to start, and I practiced as an athletic trainer. And during my time in undergrad, I kind of saw the gap in between the mental and physical side of sports, and it just sparked a curiosity in me. And so I decided to pursue my education in sports psychology, and it kind of just led me down this path.
I stopped you. We were getting on a tangent there because we were talking about why, when this is done in other spots, you said, I think there's a need here. What did you notice? What did you recognize?
So, I mean, when I was coaching, I was seeking out resources myself because at first I started off as an assistant coach, and I really found myself just trying to find books, material, things that just, where can I learn more? Because it just seemed like the resources weren't here. So eventually when I kind of got to, in a space where I was like, I really want to know more, I need to know more in order to be better, I sought out.
Amazing concept, by the way.
Right. So I was like, I need to know more. And actually my dad was the person who's like, have you thought about going for a sports psychology degree? And I was like, now I am. So where do we go? And the closest one that I found was down in Florida State. But it turns out, without doing much research on my end, there was one in Miami, Ohio.
Okay.
But I didn't know about it at the time, so I applied to Florida State and I applied to University of Denver, which is where I actually got in. And so I went and just had almost like a revolution, like wow, there's so much stuff out there that I didn't know. And I feel like I'm more equipped now to come back as a coach, but also as a consultant, also as a teacher to help not just players, but coaches and parents even kind of understand how they can be better nurture and better enhance performance.
I want to dive, in our second segment, I want to dive more into kind of the bullet points which you guys have laid out as far as how the day will unfold when people attend. But I'm wondering, who does this speak to? Who, as far as from the coaching standpoint, who are you trying to reach? Who needs it?
I think any coach needs it at any level. So whether that's youth level, high school level, collegiate level, or even professional level. Anyone who's trying to enhance their skill set as a coach. So it could be a coach that went to college for coaching, or it could just be a coach that's any ordinary, dad or mom out there who has the passion for it.
And we're not just talking X's and O's here. We're talking specifics to the actual mental side of how you approach topics, how you get through. Yes?
Yes, and how to communicate with your athletes in an effective manner.
And we're not talking any specific sport either.
No, really. So it's like if you look at performance in general, if you get into a philosophy, most coaches knows that there's X's and O's, there's a physical, there's a tactical, and there's a technical side of coaching. But more often than not, if you ask coaches, what is the difference between elite level sport and then, youth sport and amateur sport, is typically the mental side, the cognitive, emotional, and the mental side of sport. And most coaches either haven't gotten that training, or they don't know about it, they don't know where to get it. And that's kind of the other piece of this too is, hey, we're a resource. We're a resource in the community. So you may not know that we exist, but here we are. We're looking to support any way we can. And one of the things that we have to overcome is we aren't trying to take over a voice for coaches. We're trying to help the coaches enhance their voice. So typically one of the barriers is coaches don't realize that we're out there. And then when they do, it's like, well, I don't want to bring this person in because they might undercut my message. I don't really trust them because I've got this cohesive group. And in fact, what our job really is to align with the coaches to say, hey, look, like we can communicate with you, the message you're trying to send. We might be able to help you, manage failure or frustrations better, help your athletes better regulate under performance and pressure. So that's kind of the idea. So how do we better educate the coaches that this is out there, but also to give them skills so that they can also feel more equipped to support their work.
The event comes up in March. We're going to dive into it a little bit when we come back. Stay with us here on Leading Edge. Welcome back. We are so glad to have you with us once again, talking about a Northwest Ohio Coaching Summit that is coming up in March. Obviously, we're in February already. Bella Johnson, Jonathan Haynes joining us. I wanted to talk to both of you, and Bella, I'll start with you. The American Academy of Pediatrics came out, and as we're talking about sports, coaching, athletes, they said a couple of weeks ago, they're like, okay, kids need a pause. Kids are burning out. Kids are getting injured because of all this 360, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Your mindset on that, do you take some of that into this summit? Were you already prepared to talk about it?
Yeah, so I think we'll definitely address some of those topics in the summit, just because we will be discussing how to communicate with athletes. And one thing that I specialize in is how to communicate with injured athletes and communicate the need of rest. Yes, coaches, the goal is to make the best athlete, the best teams as possible, and sometimes you can lose sight of the rest and the burnout that occurs, especially with youth athletes.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely be touching on kind of tips on how to address that with your athletes while still being able to coach them.
The day breaks down as such. I mean, you're talking about motivation in coaching. You're talking about communicating, as you guys have pointed out, communicating with the athlete, because just like students in a classroom, as you know, talking about being a former science teacher, kids are being reached in all different ways, and you got to kind of tailor that to them. Also, the psychology of excellence. You're bringing in a psychologist by trade, somebody to kind of dive into that. I'm intrigued by that because everybody wants to succeed.
Right.
Parents sometimes more than the kids, coaches sometimes more than the kids. Right. Where is the balance?
It's a great question. I think that's the probably trillion-dollar question really is, because you look at youth sport and there seems to be such an overload of my kid should be doing X, Y, and Z. They're always looking for more, always looking for
my kid should be
resources.
traveling to the other side of Ohio for travel sports.
Absolutely,
I'm just saying that as an example. I have no experience on that whatsoever.
I mean, even into Michigan, I know some people that travel to Michigan to get training and to play, but like, finding the balance is hard. I mean, I think it's hard because I think people are constantly bombarded with like, this is what should be done. And I think what's cool about bringing Coop in is because, she's a former classmate of mine.
Kirsten Cooper.
Yep.
You're speaking of?
Yep. She has seen it all. She's been a junior Olympic skier. She got into college after an injury, but she's now coming with the background of being a national champion skier at University of Colorado Boulder. And then now she actually has come full circle and is operating in the USOPC, the Olympic Training Center, as a sports psychologist to help support athletes reach their potential, but also manage the rigors and the lifestyle that come with the demands of traveling internationally, media and all that stuff, just to try to be a human so they can perform more authentic to who they are.
Yeah.
So people like her are there to provide that balance. And so when you talk about excellence and how it comes, it's like sometimes the theories are pretty simple. Just hearing it from a person who's been there, done that, sometimes sends a message home better than seeing it on TV or hearing an athlete talk about it.
Who is the best coach?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'll go from my thing from. So I'm a big soccer guy, and I think.
And I'm not talking names. I'm talking for you to build a character for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who is that? If you had to show somebody at this summit and say, this is your model coach, because they can check off this box, and this box.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, I don't think there is this is the perfect coach, because I think athletes are so different in how they need to be coached. And so I think the best coach is the one that can meet all of their athletes' needs in the different ways, whether that be the physical needs, the mental needs, the emotional needs of this athlete. And it's pretty hard to do that. That's why there's only a couple of
I'm only going to use Indiana University because I know it so well. It's where I graduated from. But
Yeah.
I know the difference in Bob Knight coaching, and that was my era.
Right.
And then Tom Allen, who was their football coach, who said LEO after every press conference, love each other.
Yeah.
So there's a divide there.
Yeah.
But is there somewhere in between that perfect coach exists?
I would say, yeah. I think it's really about, from a coaching perspective, is getting to understand who your players are or your athletes are, understanding what drives them, what their background is. And I think that's actually what is missing these days is the emotional intelligence side of coaching. So many X's and O's, physical, tactical, technical, but about like, how do you relate to somebody? How do you understand them? Where are they coming from? And so I think when you can do that and you can actually connect with them, I think you make an alliance between the two. And then as a player, I'm bought into a person who believes in me, sees me, recognizes me, and then encourages me and can push me outside that comfort zone like we all talk about.
I want to bring the graphic up so we can show people at home. This comes up next month. Once again, the Northwest Ohio Coaching Summit, March 2nd, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Not a huge chunk of time, but man, they're going to fill your head with so much great stuff. Northwest Ohio Coaching Summit at gmail.com is where you go get more information and or sign up. Yes?
Yes.
Yep.
You guys nailed it. That was fantastic. Really good stuff, and we hope you get a lot of response.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Jonathan, Bella, thank you. Stay right there. We'll wrap things up for this week right after this. Great conversation again this week. We aim to please each and every week. If you've got ideas for Leading Edge, please reach out to me, Jeff Smith at WTOL.com. And if you missed any part of our show, you can always find us on our YouTube page. Have a great rest of your week. I'm Jeff Smith. We'll see you next time.